1 in 3 children experience cyberbullying. Very, very shocking. And 1 in 5 skip school because of the emotional distress of cyberbullying.
Shows like Adolescence on Netflix showed us the emotional and psychological scars that a child inflicts on themselves. And as parents, are we overlooking those scars?
It's not right to say a parent is overlooking, but because a parent may not have detected the signs. Empathy is your antidote for bullying. It's the root of cell. And cell, actually, if you implement it beautifully, it eradicates bullying by 60%. CBSE has a beautiful platform called the Diksha, wherein they talk about how you can have a well-being of the class and how you can have very intelligent classrooms. The Delhi government schools came up with this lovely initiative called the Happiness Curriculum, a beautiful concept where they had this happiness circle for 30 minutes every day in the school. It's just giving children a voice to be heard.
10-year-old, 12-year-old stresses about what? As parents, I think we're failing to understand that part when the child is coming and telling I'm stressed.
A bully is somebody who's also having a lot of unmet social needs, or somebody who's seen family conflicts or family aggression, somebody who's in a lot of pain. There's a lot of fear for the child. More than the symptom, you need to look at the why. Why is this child behaving like this? Let's understand that first. And then you talk to the bully. You can change them. Many parents feel today they can just be friends, but that doesn't work. You need to be a parent.
You are a parent, you need to make the child feel protective, not make the child feel happy all the time.
Parents don't have time, and probably interacting with the school is also reduced, which cannot happen. You have to increase that. You should make time for your child. How many people know that your social media handles are going to be checked before you go for admission? Now the US is looking at it even for the visas.
Did you know 1 in every 10 Indian students have attempted suicide at least once? According to UNICEF, 36% of students have faced bullying at least once at the earliest of 3 years. Welcome to Yellow Slate Podcast. Today we have with us Ms. Sunalini Benjamin, CEO of National Center for Excellence, Bangalore. Hi, Ms. Sunalini.
Hello, Deepthi. How are you doing?
I'm good. So being a parent is by itself very difficult. And today, bullying is literally the topmost important thing for us as parents. Back then, the bullying used to be more verbal or physical. We could see who the bully is. But now, bullying is moved digital with the social media coming in and with schools becoming international for say. How would you think bullying is changed over a period of time? And is it getting worse?
You're absolutely right in saying that bullying has changed, and it has evolved from something that was a person-to-person act and which was time-bound within the school hours. Today, bullying has become present 24/7, and that's because social media platforms have enabled a lot of cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is something which is very frequent. It's more harder to keep away from and very anonymous. Now, you may say that there is a digital footprint, but the emotional trauma that's caused because of cyberbullying is extremely deep, and it can be scarred for life if there's no intervention that takes place much ahead. And I would really like to share some statistics if I could. The UNESCO had done a survey poll over 30 countries in 2019. And what they say is that 1 in 3 children experience cyberbullying. Very, very shocking. And 1 in 5 skip school because of the emotional distress of cyberbullying. So this is something that has become very rampant. And children who go through these face a lot of isolation. There's a lot of depression and mental health conditions which start worsening. So it has definitely evolved to become much more frequent and much more present today.
You were talking about the child becoming a little more distant. As parents, what are the beginning signs? Because I'm not with my child during the school hours or after school hours. I'm not with my child. So as a parent, what are those first signs that I can look at my child?
So before I actually get into the signs, what I really like to, mention today is that Parents have to be partners in education. And when I say partner, it's very involved, engaged parents with the school. You need to be in touch with the school. You need to be in touch with the teachers. Constantly hear about your child, express about your child. So it's a partnership. It's just not one way anymore. And the early signs have to be detected. And what you can find out is probably if the child has suddenly stopped talking about friends, academic decline has increased, or suddenly becoming very aggressive, also trying to fit in, like an over compliance. I'm trying to fit in and I'm just not myself. So, this when a parent starts noticing, and you know what happens, it's very dicey here because these also could be some stages of growing up, have some of these signs.
Exactly.
So, what you need to do is when you partner with the school, you can track from the school side what's happening and you can express what you see the child because children are very different at times in school and at home.
I was about to ask that because my child, let's say, is at home differently. But when I attend all the PTAs and when I go talk to the teachers, she's like the most well behaved, well mannered, disciplined child. But at home, everything is just scattered everywhere. And then how do I know what is and where do I know that what my child, the change that you're talking about,
Yeah.
where do I know?
So the example that you gave is just a child being a child at home.
Okay.
Okay, that's a safe space.
Okay,
I
that's
mean,
a safe
in the sense like for cleanliness, I would say it's not something that you have to really be very worried about. But when you find something being very withdrawn, or friends not coming over, or suddenly loss of appetite, no interest in academics, these are your red flags.
Okay.
And that's when you need to start, talking to the teachers. And there are stages of a child's life, especially when they start teenage. And teenage is much earlier today. So that's when you need to have constant conversations with the teachers to be able to identify any of these red flags. So I would say engage parents, partner with the schools.
Okay. Shows like Adolescence on Netflix recently showed us the emotional and psychological scars that a child inflicts on themselves because of things that happen outside home. And as parents, do you think are we overlooking those scars?
Again, it's not right to say a parent is overlooking, but because a parent may not have detected these signs. So when you look at adolescents and you understand, what they want to actually portray, is they're only trying to educate parents on the red flags. And if you look at the series, this is the red flag that they show. But what happens in series like this is sometimes, they go to an extent of dramatizing the whole thing or romanticizing. And we must understand that we get back to nonfiction. Right. We get back to nonfiction and we see how is it in the real world. So series like this are good for awareness, but the outcome should be that you take a dialogue around this narrative and you ask questions, have open conversations with children saying, why did that happen? Could it have been handled better? Could this have been avoided? When you have those kind of open conversations with children, you will be able to make them aware, make them feel safe, and create that environment which is very emotionally stable for them. So I really, I don't have any perception on the show as per se, but I say it's good for an awareness program. But don't get too deep into it. Take it as a dialogue for discussion.
When it comes to bullying, we hear something called cell in school. Can you tell us what that is about?
Okay. So CEL is the social emotional learning framework that CBSE has come up with, which is aligned to the National Education Policy 2020. And it's all about the education of the head, the heart, and the hand.
Oh,
It's a very beautiful
interesting.
philosophy. And it has been culled out from something called CASEL, which is a collaborative for academic, social, emotional learning, all framed by wonderful psychologists. People like Daniel Goleman, who's the author of Emotional Intelligence, people like Timothy Shriver, who's currently the chair of CASEL. These are all aligned. When you look at CEL or social emotional learning, it's a process and it's for adults and for children. I will not say it's only for children, it's very much for adults too. It's a process of actually imbibing the right attitude, the knowledge, and the skills of being empathetic, having emotional intelligence, being engaged, and just being very sensitive to another. So that's the whole idea of the social emotional. It fosters 5 key competencies. The first competency is being self aware. How am I? Do I get nervous before an exam? Accept it. That's just being self aware of what my feelings are. The second is self management. The second competency is self management. Fine, I get nervous. So, what can I do before an exam? Can I just practice some breathing techniques? I've accepted that I'm nervous. Now, let me just look at how I can handle this, right? So, it's all about self regulation, self management. The third competency is social awareness. How do I feel towards another person? Am I empathetic towards what they feel? So, empathy is the core of self. It's to put yourself in another person's shoes and to actually feel what they feel. So, that's social awareness, the third competency. Fourth being relationships. So, how do I communicate? What are my interpersonal skills like? How do I handle conflicts? So, conflict resolution, and how empathetic I am. And the fifth one being, do I make responsible decisions or do I take responsible, which is for the good of all and just not myself? So these are the 5 core competencies of Cell, okay, which has been all put into a wonderful framework and it is implemented in schools in various forms.
So, is it implemented only in CBSE schools or in general all the schools? It's a
All
framework done by CBSE.
Yes, CBSE has very intentionally brought it in.
Okay.
See, because schools have to intentionally create a safe environment.
Exactly.
Unless they do that, bullying will become very normalized and very systemic. So, schools have to intentionally structure social emotional learning. And all good schools, irrespective of the curriculum, they do have this embedded somewhere in their curriculum. That's how it is.
Cell is something the school implements, so the school takes care. But as a parent involved in this program with the school?
Can be. You can be there to conduct an awareness session. Okay, you can be part of awareness sessions. So good schools have workshops, awareness programs for parents and for students
Okay.
because it helps parents identify those signals that we spoke about earlier. And you can also be a part if you have parents who are counselors, experts, right? They can come and conduct a session also. So it just depends on as what kind of an audience are you coming in. That's how it is. But all good schools, definitely during their parent orientations, do talk about how cell is implemented in the school, how it works. They do because it's very much part of the curriculum. It's not something that's taught separate.
Okay.
It's very beautifully embedded and structured in the curriculum that it really doesn't appear that you're teaching something so different. Okay. And it can be, integrated into academics. Let's take, for example, an English class. And you're talking about a story. All stories have good and bad,
Yes.
right? So you open up the dialogue to the school, to the students in the class, saying that, okay, why was Macbeth like the way he was, for example, right? Could he have done something better? Let's just discuss this. And you start looking at different perspectives. You give children the opportunity of a student voice, look at perspectives, talk about, instead of just being judgmental about things, just go back to asking simple questions. Was he empathetic? Was he being kind? Was he using the right values? Did he make the right choices? When he made a choice, what was it based on? Was it a very selfish attitude, or was it something selfless? It's just beautifully woven into the school, but it has to be a little structured. And most good schools definitely follow.
Okay. So the teachers are trained under this program?
I would say not universally.
Mm.
It definitely calls for an investment. Okay. And I think the training for teachers has to be much more structured on things like active listening. Active listening is very important, right? And what is trauma informed practices? So that means when a child is displaying a certain behavior, do you see it as a threat or do you see it as a signal? Teachers have to be trained on that. How do you validate feelings? See, it's a very beautiful concept because a person is feeling a certain way. How do you validate it? Is it to escape something or are they really feeling it? So there has to be some kind of structured training for teachers. And CBSE has a beautiful platform called the Diksha, wherein they talk about how you can have a well-being of the class and how you can have very intelligent classrooms. Okay. So it's good for teachers to sign up on that, and good schools again do invest in the professional development for teachers. But at the end of the day, it's an investment for schools, which is worth it.
Talking about cell, how long does it take for cell to be implemented in schools?
The question that you're asking me, Deepthi, is about how schools structure it into the curriculum. And so it's really not very challenging. It's how you embed it. You can embed it through co-scholastic activities. You can embed it in your value education classes. You can embed it even into academics, like I just gave you the example of English. In social science, through inspirational stories, you can embed it there. So it's something that's very invisibly done. And there are certain places where it's very structurally done, like the life skills education. The life skills education which CBSE has brought in is touching upon or honing core psychosocial attitudes like thinking skills, creative thinking, critical thinking, decision making, problem solving, social skills like how do I communicate? Am I empathetic? How do I resolve conflicts constructively? How do I actually manage my emotions? And then you move on to the emotional skills of how do I cope with stress, right? How do I handle some kind of pressure? So, if you look at all these competencies, they can very beautifully be embedded in academics, in co scholastic areas, and it also can happen through, journaling, student portfolios, perspective taking activities like a debate. It can be like as simple as, you can have a small discussion with the kids. Okay, let's take up the topic of coping with peer pressure, a very famous one, right? Take that. Now, what can you do for that? As a teacher, you can show them probably a small clip from adolescence, and let's say, okay, let's just set the base. That's the tone for the teacher. And then get into a dialogue on it and give those prompts which actually make children think. Like I said, is it right? What could have been better? What was a better way of responding rather than reacting? And how could they have spoken up, expressed their fear? A lot of these kind of interactive activities with children will embed cells so beautifully. That's why I said it's something very subtle, very beautifully done through life skills education. And the Delhi government schools came up with this lovely initiative called the happiness curriculum, a beautiful concept where they had this happiness circle for 30 minutes every day in the school hour. So they would have these sharing circles where you talk about self-awareness and you just journal things, how you felt, talk about what you experienced, anything like that. It's just giving children a voice, okay, to be heard. They express themselves, and the teacher, instead of being judgmental, just gently guides them or nurtures them into thinking the right way.
Okay.
And the right way is to be empathetic. It's
Okay.
as simple as that, which is most difficult,
Right.
because today we are all about I, me, myself.
Yes.
We find it so difficult to think about another person and how they're feeling.
Absolutely. The suicide rates in children, especially the teenage adolescents, have almost doubled in the last 10 years. And 48% of it is because of bullying. And the remaining 52 is because of stress that the education has on it or the parents are putting on the children. Why do you think the rate is doubled in just the last 10 years?
Like we just discussed, because of lack of time. Lack of time for a parent, lack of identification of those red flags, or over expectation from the child. It's very important for us to accept our children the way they are. So, again, we're coming back to understanding who you are, your self identity, being aware of your emotions, being aware of your capabilities. If we accept our children the way they are and allow them to pursue what they want to pursue, rather than saying, I am this and I want you to be this, or I want you to be 10x of what I am. These kind of expectations automatically put pressure on a child, right? So it's very important for us to understand the personality of a child, accept the child. Fine, this is the way my child is. Sometimes if you have two, three children, you will see one is very different to the other. That's perfectly fine. Just accept their beauty, accept their own identity the way they are, and let that just be nurtured. I think if you do that, have more communication with children, be in touch with the school, a child feels that I am seen, I am heard, you're not going to be facing these problems. Today, unfortunately, parents don't have time, and probably, interacting with the school is also reduced, which cannot happen. You have to increase that. You should make time for your child. That has to become the priority.
So, what the schools are doing, the regular PTMs and the regular, is that enough? Or do you think there has to be something more to it?
In my view, there has to be more regular interactions. Like I said, it can be through easier platforms like an online platform where a school should be there to reach out to a parent if a parent has anything. Because along this journey, something can just, crop up for a parent.
Yeah.
So they should have this kind of systems where a parent can reach out to a school and say, no, only come for the PTM. But I don't think any school is doing that today. Yeah, because most good schools and most schools are doing a good job, and they have very open systems where a parent can reach out, but that parent has to make that time, a phone call, a WhatsApp conversation through the ERP system. You can raise a ticket, there are so many ways that you can do it if you want to.
Often movies and shows, they dramatically exaggerate bullying, or they try and show the main character being a big bully, and it's okay with everybody. What kind of effect does these movies have on our children?
Again, if we explain to them that this is something fictional, right, and we live in a real world which is non-fictional, we are dealing with humans and we need to respond and not react, and this is not something that is heroic. Yes, if we explain this, have this kind of, it's a constant reinforcement. You see, emotional intelligence is something that has to be modeled. It has to be reinforced. It's not something that can just be done for a day, constantly at the home level. That's why reflective journals are the best, even for a child, even for an adult, right? You go back home, how was my day? Did I say something rude to somebody, right? Gratitude journals, am I grateful for something? These practices, self-help practices, will allow a child not to look at these kind of movies as something big. It's nice as a story. See it, watch it, forget it. Right? Come back to what I have to be.
I often hear parents saying it's okay if the child gets bullied because that's what is going to make him or her strong, because the world outside is very tough. Is that right? Is it okay?
That's a very harmful attitude.
Mhm.
Yes, because I don't believe strength comes from enduring or from suffering, right?
Right.
And Cell beautifully reframes this narrative. It builds character, okay, through boundaries, through empathy, and through assertiveness. So, thinking that way is something that's very, very wrong, because bullying actually leaves very deep emotional scars for life, which may affect a child at every stage of life and whoever they come into contact with. And I don't think strength is built from suffering, but strength is built from working out strategies to be able to overcome the pain. And if you look at the Cell framework, that's what it does. It builds character through allowing people to set their boundaries, through allowing people to be assertive at the right time, not aggressive, but assertive. And it allows people to be empathetic. So I think that is the way you can build strength rather than through bullying.
In the eyes of Indian law, bullying is not illegal. That's the statement. A bully cannot be convicted, or a bully cannot be punished unless there's a self harm that has happened to the person who's got bullied. In during all of this, they always say that a adult or a school has to take up the complete responsibility of a bullying. Do you see the schools actually taking up responsibilities?
About a bully not getting punished, I think it's because probably they look at remediation first at the school level, again with parent involvement, right? Because if a parent is going to go and approach a school, or if a school approaches a parent saying that this is what the child has done and the parent is okay with it, again there's contradiction. Like I said, a school and a parent have to be in sync, and then this remediation can take place rather than going into a very extreme form of punishment, because a punishment is going to also scar a child for life. So instead of that, identify the symptoms, understand the why, and work out the hows.
But, ma'am, when a child, or let's say when a bully, do not face any consequences for the act that the bully has done, how will he or she change?
I don't think the consequences should be avoided, but the consequences should be such that are also empathetic and towards nurturing and rebuilding a child, rather than putting a child like a very basic thing of punishment. You cannot take part in this, or you cannot do that. Sometimes it is needed, let me tell you.
Yes.
It is needed, but you should know to what level you go. And that is where the trained counselor comes in. See, all teachers may not be trained for that, but that's the role of the counselor, who knows exactly how to handle the child and what works for this child and what does not work for this child. So it's a very one-on-one therapy that takes place with the school counselor,
Okay.
which is a remediation. And the teachers and the parents support the counselor in this therapy. So if we work together that way, it can be changed. You should not give up hope on children. Yeah, it can be changed. It can work around it. And when it's gone to a level that is a little extended, it's probably because there was something missing at the base. So again, a school has to validate, look into things, see what they can change, bring in something else. See, earlier gender sensitization classes, just to give you an example, used to take place after grade 6. Today, sometimes we start it as early as grade 4, right? So their self identity, even helping bullies to look at, okay, do I want to be known like this? Do I want to be seen like this? Can I be seen as a better person? Can I be known for kindness? That's why I keep repeatedly saying schools have to teach kindness.
So, ma'am, as working parents or working mother, we do not have so much of time to come back home every day and sit and have like half an hour conversation with my child. What has she done? Probably she's already gone to bed by the time I come back from work certain days. Is there some tips that you can give, especially for working parents? The school, if they definitely has a seminar or any of the meets on a Saturday weekends, we would come. But sometimes the school has it in the morning hours, early hours, during the weekdays. We won't be able to attend, and we would not be able to communicate through mails the in detail description of the child's behavior. So, as a parent, as an educator, can you tell us those small things for working parents, especially who do not have time?
It's a very valid question, Deepthi, but let's not forget that whichever generation it was, everybody was working.
Yes.
Okay. And once you have made the choice to have a child, the child becomes your priority, even if it calls for a loss of pay. And it's very important as parents. I will first speak from the parent perspective. When you join any company, it's very important to tell people who you work with that my child is my first priority and then my work. So whenever I'm needed at her school, I'd like to be there. Coming to the second part, I think good schools today, as one of the best practices, they have a lot of online platforms where parents can connect, because we totally understand that it is difficult to come physically. And post COVID, a lot of such kind of meetings have gone on. So I think you should make use of those situations while you're in office, connect online and get to know. Because if work takes priority, this red flag may just turn into something else which you cannot control beyond that. And as your partner or your spouse, you need to both understand how to divide your time so that one of you is there in the evening by the time she or he gets back from school. At least by maybe 5 o'clock, spend at least half an hour, because open communication is really what is missing in today's families. And that's why you find a lot of these bonds broken, a lot of disparity in terms of engaged parents. So this is something that the couple have to really balance for themselves and keep child as their priority.
So it's the parents' responsibility.
Definitely. See, it's not only the parents, it's also the schools. But how much can a school do beyond? And unless the school and parents work in partnership, there's no success for a child. So that is something we need to keep in mind. And it's just how you work out your balancing act. That's about it.
Right. You were talking about tolerance, patience. As far as I know, back then, we would we would be a little more tolerant, or I would say we as children were a little more patient compared to the children today. Is it a parenting thing, the new trend called gentle parenting? You need to be gentle. And we hear our children coming and telling us, oh, I'm stressed. A 10-year-old, a 12-year-old stresses about what? As parents, I think we're failing to understand that part when the child is coming and telling, I'm stressed. Can you just help us in that?
I think the first thing about adults today is, or children also for that matter, everybody wants immediate results. And when we are talking emotional intelligence, it's not so easy. It's something gradual. Let's take this example that we spoke about of me feeling anxious before an exam. It's something that I have to very consciously regulate my emotions. So, like I said, whether I'm being mindful, whether I'm using breathing techniques, over a period of time, I notice that I have stopped feeling anxious because of all these good practices. So, this kind of practices require some time. Parents want very quick results, okay? But it's very gradual because it's to do with emotions. And the best way to monitor this is to have constant interactions with the teacher. You can easily come up. Today, you have WhatsApp. If you really care for the child and the teacher is there to help out, we get into a conversation through little notes that the teacher has made. Okay, today he was not so anxious. Okay. He came forward. He said, I'm ready to take the test. Little anecdotes like this, reflective journals. The child himself starts journaling how he felt. So we need to understand as parents that all these cannot happen in a jiffy. It's a slow, gradual process, but if taken care, if addressed, you will get beautiful results. Okay. And that's the whole beauty of education, right? Yeah. You see the change in a child, and the teacher and the counselor, they see that nurturing that happens. Okay. And that's what education is all about, if you ask me.
Right.
Yeah.
You were telling that the teacher is also part of it. It's like a parent teacher combined thing to help the child grow. But at home or in sports, especially when we see the children playing in the play area, they are like 4 or 5 kids together, get together and try and target a child, or get together and try and bully a child. At home, is there something apart from empathy? I mean, we all try and tell our children that you need to be empathetic to everybody around. Apart from that, how do I tell my child to identify that it falls under bullying, or to identify that it is under bullying? Like, let's say at my child has gone to the play area, his friend has said, okay, no, we'll be played together, let's not play with him. That is a form of bullying. As an adult, I know.
Yes.
But as a child, how do I tell my child that identify that that falls under the category of bullying?
Yeah. So when the child probably expresses this, obviously you've come to know about it because your child has told you.
Yes.
That 4 of us play together and we don't play with so and so, right? Yeah. So now that itself is your first sign.
Okay.
Because you have to tell your child that you don't be a bystander, right? If I could use that word, bystander, don't be a bystander. You need to go and report this, okay, that we are not playing. First, you try telling your friends. Sometimes your child itself may be pushed again.
Yes.
Saying that, okay, you want to play, then you also, move out from our circle. It can happen.
Yes.
Right? So, if you really look at it, bystanders are around 85% and only 25% intervene. Okay? And they are the biggest game changers. Because if they speak up, if they report this, whether they want to do it anonymously, it's perfectly fine. And then they stand with the victim. that itself is curbing bullying to a big deal, because it happens at that level before it's reached the teacher, before it reaches the counselor, before it goes to the parent. It's taking place at this level. So, like I said, those values, those attributes of goodness, kindness, empathy has to be inbuilt from the preschool. And if schools practice this, it just becomes a part of you. And the same has to be done at home. At home, you cannot say be kind and start whacking the child, right? It has to be in sync. Otherwise, a child will get confused that at school they say this, but at home I'm not seeing that. It becomes very contradictory for the child.
Okay.
So that's why I said the home environment and the school environment need to be in sync. If it's in sync, you'll have a very happy, successful child. When it's not in sync, all of these start surfacing.
That is at that age. But when you were telling that a child has to go and report it to an adult or at the school, when it comes to a teenager, when a class of 20 is there and they know there is one or two snitches, if we do anything, that child will go and report. They'll try to put that child away from the things that they're doing. How do we navigate that situation?
Again, it's putting systems into place.
Okay.
Very consciously. That's why the school has to do it very intentionally. So you can have like probably an anti-bullying committee. Yeah, that's good schools practice that. You can have that where there are senior boys and girls who are part of this, can be part of the student council, who constantly bring in awareness to the children. See, why don't we report? Let's understand the reason why.
Yes.
It's fear, it's peer pressure.
Yes.
Right? So come up with systems, good schools will come up with systems that don't have to lend its way to this kind of feeling. That's why I said report anonymously. You could have little boxes where children just drop a little note saying that this is happening. And the anti-bullying committee can look at that and look at those little notes. You can come up with a peer mentoring system, because sometimes when they open up to their friends are much better mentors. Right? They don't want to be judged by mom, dad, adult, or you're incapable of handling the bully. It's again a little self-esteem comes in there. But with a friend, they're more comfortable. So you can have peer mentoring systems also. And also train the teachers so that the teachers identify this kind of behavior. So you in the playground, teachers are around. So they have to keep being very conscious. Look out for these little signals, see if somebody is being sidelined. Watch out for these. So it's a combination. You can use different strategies and you can make them feel comfortable. But bystanders should be taught that you yourself can stop the act if you just raise up. Yeah, that helps a lot.
Okay. They say once a bully is always a bully. Is that true?
I really don't think so. I don't think so. I
Can you
think
change?
yes, you can. You can, with the right kind of counseling, with the right kind of emotional intelligence being nurtured into you. See, because let's understand who's a bully. A bully is somebody who's also having a lot of unmet social needs, or somebody who's seen family conflicts or family aggression. A bully is actually somebody who's in a lot of pain. There's a lot of fear for the child. And so what they do is they find a victim who is probably softer, and then they want to show their power and their control. But if you go down to the basic of understanding the why, more than the symptom, you need to look at the why. Why is this child behaving like this? Let's understand that first. And then you talk to the bully, you can change them. I believe anybody can be changed with the right kind of nurturing, the right environment, and understanding what's good, what's bad, because all human beings are good. It's circumstances that make them bad.
Absolutely. Do you think today's children have become very sensitive than what children were 10 or 20 years back? We dealt with pressure. Everybody dealt with pressure, but not up to that level. But now children are not ready to hear a no. Right from small things, you see children in a supermarket, when a mom says no, you see the child down on the floor. Is it because of gentle parenting?
Could be, and also because of a parent being overprotective and giving too much. So, probably at times I've noticed that the lack of time is compensated with giving them whatever they want. So, once you start doing that, then they can't take a no.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's okay to say no to your child.
Very, very, very important to say no. They should know, because everything in life is not going to be a yes for them.
Yes.
So as
exactly.
parents, you sit down with the child, set goals for family vacations, set goals for academics, set goals for friendships, set goals for financial literacy. You can do all of that.
Yeah.
Digital literacy.
Yeah. So sometimes I hear parents saying you would be able to get, let's say, an iPad or something if you score 80% or if you score 90, according to the child. Do you think that's the right thing to do as parents?
In
Is
my
it okay?
view, not at all. Not at all, because it's a form of a bribe. Like I
Yes,
said, it is
that
a form
that
of
is
a bribe.
exactly what I say.
Yeah, because I would look at it as parent wants it easy.
Okay.
Yeah. So probably they have the affordability. So they say you can get this, but just get me the mark.
Okay.
Yeah. So because they just want the education to be fulfilled. So maybe they're doing that. I really wouldn't know. But based on your question, I'm answering this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe sometimes that's really not the right way. That's why I said when you set goals, what is really needed, and that can be bought.
Okay.
And that's when I say, financial literacy of what is it that from your pocket money you can contribute towards this. And what is the purpose of buying that?
Right.
Is there a purpose in buying an iPad?
Yes.
Right? The example that you
Yeah.
gave me. So, is there a purpose? Do you really need it? Let's see how we can work around this. Yeah. So, let's start putting away little money every month so that we can buy this. So, the child is observing, okay, I am doing this, mama or dada is doing this, and then we're able to buy that. But if you give it to them easy, there's no value.
Okay. Well, it's
So
very interesting.
you may not realize, but you're teaching them such life skills. First thing is that, there's no immediate gratification. Yeah. Today it's all about immediate gratification.
Yes. In everything, even relationships.
You're teaching them to hold, to have self control. You're teaching them to set goals, to work out timelines. You're teaching, even if you have money, you're teaching them to say that things just don't come easy. You have to earn, you have to work for it.
Right.
So we may not realize, but when we are doing that small activity, the kind of life skills that we are embedding into a child is something that's going to last a lifetime for them.
Right. So it's very important for a parent to be present for the child.
Yes, very, very important.
Okay. To, as parents, what is the level that I have to support my child for her social and emotional well being? What is the cutoff?
I think supporting them when they don't know where to go, what to do, and supporting them in also giving them open ended questions on their choices. So let's just take an example. If you say there's a late evening party, right? So, how are you going to get home? Will you be safe, right? Are you comfortable in going to so and so party? What are you going to wear? Is that appropriate? These kind of questions where you don't tell the child what to do, but you ask the child prompts or questions that make them think so that they start making the right choices and then they become responsible for the consequence. So I always tell children at our schools also that, you're free to make your choices, but free from the consequences. So I think as a parent, there's no end to support, but then it shouldn't be a helicopter parent. It should be allowing them, but just giving them open-ended questions to see that they're going in the right track.
We were talking about peer pressure some time back. Peer pressure makes you do things that probably as a child or even an adult, you probably would not do if you are yourself. Saying that, now there's a culture of drugs happening in school. School says we are taking all the precautions that we can. But as parents, I am still having that fear that where my child might get introduced or might get affected or get carried away if she sees certain things. As an educator, can you tell us parents what can we do? Because the world is not going to change. They have to live in the world.
So we are repeatedly coming back to the same thing, which is values.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nurturing children. And I think very important to make children understand that there are many choices in front of them. They're free to choose. But once they take a decision, they need to be ready for the consequence. So We need to constantly tell them from the home and from the school. We keep saying, right, choose your friends wisely.
Right.
So if your friends are not having the same values as you or not having the same attitude as you, there's no point being that friend. Because you need to tell children, really, will it matter 5 years from now?
Yeah.
Will this friendship really matter? Is it going to last? Because when it's not in sync with what you believe in or what your home has taught you or what your school is teaching you, which are all universal values. So it cannot go wrong. It's the same values that the home and the school will be teaching you: respect, love, good things, right? So I think that's something that we need to teach our children from both fronts, that don't get into peer pressure. It is something that you are allowing yourself. Choices are there. But if you go into it, you've made a decision to face the consequence.
Right.
Yeah. So again, communication, that's the key with the school. What's happening? Just having conversations. What kind of friends do you have? Ask them to bring their friends over. As an adult, you can supervise, see what kind of friends they have. Once or twice, just randomly check their bags. You give them pocket money. Make them note down what they do with their pocket money. There are very subtle ways of monitoring what you do with, right? So these are little things that a parent should be watchful. And many parents feel today they can just be friends, but
Right.
that doesn't work. You need to be a parent. Okay. So there has to be some kind of supervision, some kind of reminder to the flock that you get back into the fold whenever they go astray.
Yeah. The other day, I heard somebody say that you are a parent, you need to make the child feel protective, not make the child feel happy all the time.
Yes, yes.
It's
And not
okay to
possessive also.
not possessive also.
Yes.
Yeah. You were talking about pocket money, ma'am. So why 10-year-old, 11-year-old child would need a certain amount in their hand when the parent is giving them everything and they have buses, they have everything being provided? When a child comes and asks me for pocket money, I do not understand why does a 10-year-old child need any kind of amount.
It's a way of nurturing financial literacy. And you need to do it early in life.
Is it necessary?
It is. It is. It's very important to teach children of financial literacy.
Okay.
Okay. And I think most schools have got canteens today, right? And if you're going to close your doors and say that I'm sending you food, I'm sending you snacks, don't go to the canteen, you're not going to like it. You need to allow children to explore avenues. But when they come into that avenue, how do they make their choice? Is it right? Is it good? Will mom and dad be happy if I make this choice? Is it what my teacher is telling me to do? Should I spend more than this? Is it healthy to buy this kind of? So I believe it is important to start giving them some kind of pocket money to teach them financial literacy. Make a note of it. They know the value of money. When you do that, they know the value of money. There'll be children who just want to save it. Teach them to give 1 rupee to charity. If you're giving them 10 rupees, teach them. Teach them how to use a certain percentage for themselves, to keep away something to buy for themselves. It's a beautiful concept, and I don't think you can do it better than giving pocket money.
When we are talking about socio and emotional intelligence and emotional needs, the topics related to drugs and vapes are really common. As parents, how do you think we can come forward and talk and educate our children about it?
Awareness programs.
Okay.
Work with the school for a lot of awareness programs, have sessions on it, have open conversations. Don't let it be a taboo topic in the house.
Right.
A parent should be ready to talk about it. And then again, like I said, pros and cons, wise choices. If I make this choice, what happens to me? What if I get hooked onto it? Right? How does it affect me emotionally, from my health, physical health, my mental health, my academics? What's my core focus? A lot of these beautiful thoughts can come up in a parental conversation.
Okay.
And schools, of course, take up responsibility. All good schools take up responsibility of having a lot of these awareness sessions. The police do come and conduct sessions for schools. And a school should also have some security checks, right? So that children know that these kind of things are not allowed, or to monitor. Probably closed spaces, or rather open spaces, should be closed, right? And constant monitoring, constant identification, watch out for those signals. drowsy eyes, sleepy eyes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then talk to the parent about it and work out a solution together.
So back then, when sex was a taboo, the school came up with sex ed classes, which happens from grade 6 and 7. Now, drugs and vape and other things are almost a little like a taboo. Don't you think the schools should come up with another drug education class?
said-
I don't know.
Yeah, there are a lot of, see, like I said, it's all awareness. Okay. Awareness, we can take up so many topics. Digital legacy, right? How many people know that your social media handles are going to be checked before you go for admission, right? Now the US is
Right.
looking at it even for the visas,
Right.
right? So just like that, financial literacy, awareness programs, constant orientations, workshops, open dialogues, discussions, reflective journals on all of these topics, norm today.
Okay.
It has to be constantly done. Age, maybe earlier we would started probably at grade maybe 9 or 10. Today maybe you have to go down till grade 8 or 7 also. But it has to be done. It's a constant as part of school education. You cannot go away from it. And you have experts to do it. You have parents come in. That really works very well. When parents as experts come and speak, I tell you, children really love it.
Okay.
And the parent feels so good that he's been able to contribute.
Okay.
So school should connect with parent expertise and work on that.
As a parent, I can propose it to my school to have one of these sessions with a doctor or a police or
Why
anything,
not?
wherein my child is at least educated in what are things available outside, because
It's
they need to know.
very important. Very important. And like I said, all good schools have these practices.
Okay.
As far as I know, most good schools have these practices of creating awareness programs. Like I said, it is just not, gender sensitization. It's financial literacy. It's why career guidance.
Right.
Take career guidance, take about drugs. Any kind of awareness is very important, and how periodically you do it only benefits the child. Close monitoring, observation, like I said, teacher observation in the class. How was this child? Like I said, drowsy eyes or, sleepy the whole time. There are children also who study a lot in the night and kind of sleep in class.
Yeah.
So
How do
that,
we make
that
a
shouldn't
difference?
quickly be just come to a conclusion. You have a chat with the parent. The parent also should have a safety measures of monitoring what's happening at home. It is very important, right? Closing the door, not knowing what a child does. These are not very good practices. But a parent may think it's privacy,
Yeah.
but then you need to be careful.
Okay.
You're a parent at the end of the day. The school has equal responsibility, and I would say the parent has a lot more responsibility too. So both have to work in sync. Awareness, constant awareness programs, security checks, just ensuring children are safe, ensuring there is no loophole, will be able to cordon all these kind of practices.
All right. So thank you so much, ma'am, for being here today.
Thank you, Deepthi. I really enjoyed it, and I hope I could add value to this wonderful topic of bullying.
Thank you, ma'am.